بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سورة الأنعام آية number 50. قال الله تعالى: قل لا أقول لكم عندي خزائن الله ولا أعلم الغيب ولا أقول لكم إني ملك إن أتبع إلا ما يوحى إلي قل هل يستوي الأعمى والبصير أفلا تتفكرون. The Prophet ﷺ is ordered here, قل, say to the kuffar, I do not have the khaza'in, plural of khazana, which means a treasure chest or a place where wealth and treasure is hoarded up. So I do not have the treasure chests of Allah, meaning I am not responsible for the provisions that you are provided, and neither do I know the ghaib, the unseen, and I do not say that I am a malak, an angel. In other words, he's saying that he is no more than a human being, and this ayah came down in response to the mushrikun who were asking the Prophet for miracles. He goes on to say, I only make ittiba', follow what is yuha ilayya, what is revealed to me. So wahi means to inform someone quickly and secretly. That is what it is linguistically. Otherwise the wahi refers to the Quran. Then the ayah asks the rhetorical question, say, are the blind and those of sound vision the same? Will you then not ponder? The intention here is that the believers and the kuffar are not the same. The kuffar are blind, not blind via ocular vision, but rather blind in the heart. They cannot see the truth for what it is, and the believer can see the truth for what it is. So the blind and those of sound vision are not equal. So the mu'min is superior to the kafir. Will you not then ponder, meaning, will you not then ponder over the creation and how Allah Jalla wa Ala is the Rabb, and that He alone is worthy of worship and not the false idols? So reflecting on ayah number 50, we take that it is obligatory upon the Prophet to convey everything that Allah reveals to him from the Quran, because the ayah begins by the order qul. So the Prophet is simply conveying what Allah teaches him to convey. We learn that the Prophet does not own the treasures of Allah Jalla wa Ala. He is unable to provide you, which then means that it is impermissible to make dua to the Prophet. We also take that he does not know the unseen, and this is a rebuttal against some of the Sufiya who say that the Prophet knows the unseen. For example, the things that happened in the past, before his existence, and that he has always been in existence, albeit in spirit form. And these are obvious, innovated beliefs, without any basis. Now, of course, it is possible that Allah reveals some of the unseen to the Prophet, but that is only when Allah reveals it. The Prophet himself, on his own accord, does not know the unseen. We find also that the Prophet is not an angel, because it is not fitting for an angel to be sent as a messenger to mankind. Rather, we have like for like. We also find the Prophet is a servant. He follows what is revealed to him from the Quran. We may also take from this that worshipping in this Sharia is tawqifi. You have to restrict yourself to the text, which is the wahi. And you're not allowed to make up anything from your own accord, even if you feel it is something good and virtuous. We also learn that the blind and non-blind are not equal. The non-blind is superior to the blind. Now, of course, this is by way of ocular vision, but also by way of the vision of the heart. Because when your heart is sealed, you cannot see the truth for what it is. You are blind to the truth, even if you can see through ocular vision. The Muslim can see, and the kafir is blind. As Allah Jalla wa Ala says that in reality it is the hearts which go blind, not the eyes. We also find from this ayah the obligation of tafakkur, of pondering over the ayat of Allah Jalla wa Ala, be it ayat kawniyah or ayat shar'iyah, and coming to the realization that there is a creator who is worthy of worship, and that this creator has sent down a messenger to teach us how to worship the creator. And also those people who do not make tafakkur, such people are blameworthy. Ayah 51. وَأَنذِرْ بِهِ الَّذِينَ يَخَافُونَ أَنْ يُحْشَرُوا إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ لَيْسَ لَهُمْ مِنْ دُونِهِ وَلِيٌّ وَلَا شَفِيعٌ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. He gives the command to the Prophet, and consequently it is also a command to the rest of us, to warn with it, meaning with the Quran, those who yakhafuna, fear, that they will be yuhsharu, gathered all together to their Rabb. Besides Allah, they will not have any wali, meaning a nasir, a helper, a patron, nor a shafi', meaning nor anyone to intercede for them. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. Warn them so that they may practice taqwa. And of course taqwa, as mentioned before, is to save yourself from the punishment of Allah by obeying His commands and refraining from His prohibitions. But there is a question mark. Why are you warning those who already believe in the resurrection and so on? Shouldn't you be warning the kuffar? And the answer is that this ayah is telling the Prophet to warn those of the Muslimin who have fallen into sin, so that they may refrain from the sin. Just because you're a Muslim does not mean you're not sinful. Rather, you can find many Muslims who are plenty sinful. So, reflecting on ayah 51, we find the obligation of warning people using the Quran, meaning to say quoting ayat from the Quran. So if you're going to say something is haram or makruh, then you need to give evidence from the Quran. Or indeed we can say the authentic sunnah as well, because that follows the Quran, as the Quran itself orders us to follow the sunnah of the Prophet. We also learn that there is a day of hashr, day of being gathered together before Allah Jalla wa Ala. This is part of the aqidah. We also find that the wrongdoers will have no intercessor. The righteous ones will have intercessors, but only after the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. We also learn from this ayah that your ultimate aim is having taqwa, because this is the point of warning people, is that they attain their ultimate aim, which is to have taqwa. Ayah 52. وَلَا تَطْرُدْ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ مَا عليك من حسابهم من شيء وما من حسابك عليهم من شيء فتطردهم فتكون من الظالمين. He says here to the Prophet, do not make tard, which means to banish. Do not banish those people who are yad'una, meaning dua, calling upon their Rabb. So this could be by way of dhikr or by way of salah and so on. Bil ghadati wal ashi, they are calling upon their Rabb in the ghadat, meaning salat al-fajr, and al-ashi, in the afternoon, meaning salat al-asr. But the point about this is that they are constantly, all throughout the day, calling upon their Rabb in various ways. And this ayah came down in response to when the leaders of the Quraysh told the Prophet to keep the poor people away from us if you want to speak to us, because they did not want to be in the presence of the low-class people. And he says to the Prophet, you will not be asked in aught about their deeds and their accounting, and they will not be asked in aught about your deeds and accounting. Because if it were the case that the Prophet will be asked about the hisab or the accounting of these people, meaning some of his companions, then he might want to banish them, because the Prophet does not want to shoulder the burden of other people's deeds. He says, فَتَطْرُدَهُمْ, the verb is mansub al-fatha because of the harf an, which is implied. فَتَكُونَ, because then in that case, if you do banish them, you would be from the zalimin, from the wrongdoers. So banishing the righteous people from your company would make you into a wrongdoer. Reflecting on ayah 52, we take the imperative nature of keeping righteous company, and do not banish the righteous. because in that case you would be from the wrongdoers. We also learn, do not judge people based on their social status, how rich they are, how good looking they are, how popular they are, whether they have a high-powered job or not. All of these are superficial matters, not important with Allah Jalla wa Ala. The only thing which matters is Iman and Taqwa. This is the yardstick with which you measure and judge people, including your own self. We take from this ayah the virtue of making dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala morning and afternoon, because Allah mentions this in a positive light. So constantly being in the dhikr of Allah. We also take the virtue of sincerity, because again He mentions this in a positive light when He says seeking the face of Allah, that is to say seeking to see the face of Allah in Jannah. And similar to that is also seeking the pleasure of Allah and His reward. We also take that no one will bear the burden of another, and that is obvious from the ayah. Of course, if you teach someone something good, then you have an equal share, and if you teach someone something evil, then you will bear an equal burden, because that is from your actions as well. We also notice in this ayah that Allah Jalla wa Ala speaks to the Prophet in a slightly harsh and stern manner, despite the fact that the Prophet has the most taqwa of Allah Jalla wa Ala out of all of mankind. And this is because Allah Jalla wa Ala is just, and there is a specific style of speech for every context. There is a place for everything, and everything in its place. So when the situation calls for it, Allah Jalla wa Ala does speak to the Prophet sternly. And this is not the only case in the Quran where Allah Jalla wa Ala speaks to the Prophet in a stern manner. هذا والله أعلم.